And I would say you're influenced by your environment. You are not a product of your environment. I went through a period of time where, I did feel pretty bad about where I was and, where we were economically and violence and just struggling.
When you hear people say, young people, right? They want to be the top 1% of earners. They want to be a CEO. They want to be an entrepreneur. And they say, I am going to succeed in this. Hey, I want to be this person. That they're actually going to become that person.
Look, everybody can say that, but few people are willing to pay the price.
Let me explain. Today, we have very, very, very special guests, right? The Chief Operating Officer of BANKUNITED, and I know you guys are young, right? Most of you guys are young. To put into perspective, the bank has around $35 billion in assets, right? $35 billion in assets. And he's one of the most influential people in the company. Just so you have an idea. So it's my pleasure to introduce and interview Tom Cornish. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
So I saw your New York interview. We spoke off camera. I thought it was really good. Right?
Thank you.
And I think the most interesting part of the interview was when you were talking about your early childhood in the beginning. And I think it's fair to say you had a rough childhood.
It was tough. It was a tough upbringing.
By the way you described it, was very rough. That you were abandoned when you were younger.
Correct.
Your hope to be foster father passed away.
He did.
And then it's pretty much you and your foster mother, right?
Correct.
Ended up moving to Miami, South Florida. Here you had your living, right? But did that feeling of abandonment or that feeling of damn, why is this all happening to me fuel you to want to become something of yourself?
Well, I wouldn't say it was directly tied to that. So if you trace it back, I was abandoned at a very young age. And so when my mom and I, who sort of adopted me, not exactly in the legal way, she more like absconded with me.
Yeah.
When we made this trip through the center of the country and we left Milwaukee and we went to Kansas City and Indianapolis and Oklahoma and Dallas, and eventually we arrived in Miami. Of course, I'm relatively young. We left Milwaukee and we started this odyssey when I was about 4. So your recollection really doesn't go back to that time frame, so to speak. And it was later in life that I actually found out that all of this happened. I was a teenager before I really learned that my mother wasn't really my biological mother. And I learned this entire story. She didn't tell me until she thought I was old enough to be able to handle it. But so that in itself, I would say was not a primary motivator for me. But what was a motivator was, my mother who adopted me for all intents purposes, herself had not finished high school. Her husband passed away. She left with me. She came in search of, some level of work. Ultimately, found a job working as a hotel housekeeper on Key Biscayne here in Miami. And so we grew up, as a kid with a single parent. We grew up in, a pretty economically disadvantaged neighborhood. We lived ourselves in a variety of different places, mostly because we couldn't pay the rent anywhere. And so by the time we were past due enough, we had to move somewhere else in kind of the Little River neighborhood in Miami, which was a pretty, challenging neighborhood. And so, I grew up essentially, never having a phone, never even realizing that people actually had a washer and dryer, in their homes, going to laundromats. And we lived in kind of a one-room efficiency, many of them, over a period of years. And so, as I became, a lot of times when you're a really young kid and you're poor and your conditions are not good, you don't really know an outside world because everybody around you lives like you.
You think what your situation is
normal.
Yeah.
Right? And then as you start to get older, and you start to encounter more people in more situations, you start to realize sort of where you are on the economic totem pole.
Yeah.
And, but I mean, we kind of lived for almost all of the years when I was growing up, kind of day to day. I mean, we really did not know where the next dollar was coming from and where the next meal was coming from. And many nights I did homework with flashlights because our lights were turned off. There wasn't adequate, food in the house.
Yeah.
And it became like, I remember the first time that I found out, we would go to the store every day based upon the tips that my mom got in the hotel and buy food for the next day. I still vividly remember the first time I saw somebody and I was at their place, called a place of residence,
Yeah.
when I saw a family come in with like 8 or 9 bags of groceries. And I was astonished that somebody actually could afford to buy groceries for the entire week. I couldn't believe it. I thought they must have been rich.
How old are you? How old were you at that
I was
age?
probably 13.
Wow. And so when you saw that, you were like,
Wow, how could this be? Who does that? How can anybody have enough money that they could buy groceries for a full week in advance? So as I was in my teenage years, obviously you're learning, you're older, you're seeing things on television. You're starting to recognize, even in a fairly impoverished area, that there is a world very different than your world. And I think that, that recognition more than anything began to fuel an ambition and a desire to
like a
achieve
kickstart.
and have more than I had.
Mm-hmm.
As you're 7, 8 years old, it doesn't really hit you because everybody around you's like you. So your situation seems normalized. But once you get into your teen years, you start to become cognizant of lots of different things in your life that either can at times take you back because you find it depressing and unfair, which it probably is both cases, or you use it as fuel to kind of say, I want to change my life and I want to have something different than I have.
And I think that's why I asked that question, because you're not saying that you're a product of your environment. I think there's two sides of it, right? Someone could say that same situation that you had, you were abandoned, foster father, all that stuff, right? They could look at that. Someone else could be in that situation and say, hold up, this is my life, so I can't be more than this. Like, I don't have the opportunity. How am I going to create an opportunity? How am I going to become the chief operating officer of a bank if I come from this, right? Like, people can say like that. Or like you said, you say, hold up, I never had this, so let me figure out a way to get it. So do you think that saying of you're product of your environment is sure?
No, I don't think it's true. I would modify it a little bit,
In
and
what
I
way?
would say you're influenced by your environment. You are not a product of your environment, in my view. So you're either going to be influenced positively or you're going to be influenced negatively. It's your choice to decide how you want to be influenced by that, because you could take that as unfair and a negative, and you could, deteriorate
Mm-hmm.
yourself into some very negative thought process about what your future can be, or you could be influenced by it positively and use that as the fuel, to drive your own ambition. I don't think anyone, is predetermined as a product of their environment based upon whatever that environment is. No more than you're a product of your environment if you come from a successful family in a higher economic area. You can fail with that as well. You're influenced by that environment, but you're not
Obligated,
destined to
yeah.
have that same environment.
That's talking. I think talking about you can either deteriorate or not. Specific story that in high school and in college, you kind of wandered off, I would say, right? You were expelled from high school 17 different times.
Correct.
To be fair, it was from 2 different high schools.
Correct.
I'm gonna be. How do you get
Correct.
expelled from like 17? Like, don't they expel you once and then
Well, I was suspended, not
suspended?
expelled.
Ah, okay.
So
So suspended 17
yeah,
times.
it was two schools. That's true, but in tough inner city schools, the bar is high for suspension because you've got a lot of negative stuff going on. So you could probably suspend half the school.
Uh-huh.
So it was I went through, and this leads me to my thought process around being a product versus being influenced. I went through a period of time where, I did feel pretty bad about where I was and, where we were economically and the things that you saw going on in the neighborhood and violence and just struggling, kind of day to day to get by. And so there was a period of time where I kind of fell into negative behavior and kind of negative thinking about, what I wanted to accomplish in my life and where life was heading. But then other factors can also positively influence you. As you may remember, I had a teacher
Yeah.
that positively influenced me and helped me to think about, I was always a good reader. And I can still remember it today, like it happened yesterday. Kids had to stand up in class and read. And many kids struggled with reading even a paragraph. And I stood up and read a complete page, flawlessly. And I remember the teacher grabbing me after class and saying, you're a beautiful reader. Obviously, you're an intelligent young man. Why are you so determined to waste your life? Because I see your habits. I see, what you're doing in school. I see the trouble you're getting in, lack of coming to school, absences. What drives you to want to sabotage yourself? And that comment, as much as anything, influenced me, not immediately, but a year and a half later. I was thinking about that comment. I hadn't done a lot with that comment, but it came back to me one day, and I realized that I was sabotaging myself. And I decided to do something about it. And I had been out of school for probably a year and a half.
This was in college, right? That
This
the
was in high
teacher
school.
in high school that the
Yeah,
teacher.
this was in high school as a high school English teacher. So I had dropped out of high school after
Mhm.
my last bout with being asked to leave and didn't do anything for a year and a half, was a dropout. And that comment came back to me. And I made the decision at that moment that something would change. And I took public transportation down to an adult education facility in downtown Miami and enrolled in a GED program so that I could complete my high school education. And then I finished that and I went to Miami-Dade, started working my way through Miami-Dade, completed my AA degree, started going to FIU, went to FIU my last 2 years, working my way through college, and then I was on the right path.
I think there's two big takes from that. That sometimes I think your situation, by reading it, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When that teacher told you that comment, you said it took like a year and a half till you took action and said, you know what, man, she's right. I do need a change. I think it's because of that fear that you know it's the truth. That fear of like, she's right. And it takes that long to accept it because you don't want to change. You're comfortable. And you're like, no, but I don't have, like, I just want to stay where I am because you're scared of the truth. You're scared of the unknown. You're scared of like, what if I do succeed? Then what? I'm not qualified for it. A bunch of different thoughts. And I think that could relate a lot to you guys as well. But another take from it is like you said, even when you did decide to make the decision, it's not like, oh, I made the decision to change. Oh, I became the chief operating officer like that. It was more so, okay, I know what I need to do is change. I cannot keep going the same way. But at that point, did you have the end in mind saying like, okay, from there, like, I want to become the chief operating officer, I want to become an executive, or was it more like, I just want to get out of where I am, and then over time, it led you to there?
Yeah, I think it's rare, and certainly would not have been true in my case, that at that time when I had sort of that catalytic moment of saying, you know, I want to move forward positively. There is no way that I had the scope of knowledge to even understand what a chief operating officer was, or what a bank did, or, you know, I've been in the insurance industry, I've been in the finance industry. You know, you don't know those things, you know, immediately. Those paths don't become clear to you until you're making progress and moving down, you know, life. I mean, I'm sure it is possible that there are some people that at that age could say, you know, I mean, most kids at that age, they're thinking about playing point guard for the Heat or playing wide receiver for the Dolphins. Those are kind of the things that come to them. But as you make progress down the path of life, you start to see doors opening and you start to see opportunities and avenues that you would not have thought about, you know, previously. And it's also an important lesson in life because today industries change, opportunities change, companies change, technology changes so rapidly that in order to be successful, you've got to be far nimbler in your thinking than you may have had to have been 30 years ago.
By nimbling, what do you mean by that?
By, you know, if you think about working for a company,
Okay.
you know, or whatever you want to do, the path forward was more linear and predictable and structured. You know, people got into a company and they thought, okay, I go from this job to this job to this job to this job, and this is exactly how it works. And these are the skills I need to. It's like being almost in the army, you know.
Yeah.
You go from private to corporal to, you know, on and on and on. Today in the economy, things change so quickly. You know, technology changes so quickly. Opportunities can change so quickly that you have to be a lot more flexible and nimble in terms of thinking about how you build a career and what you're going to do and where there are opportunities to take advantage of. If you get, you know, I'd kind of draw the parallel that if you're walking down the street and you're looking directly in front of you at every step, you're going to miss a whole world of things around you that are happening that give you a different path to go down. And so you have to be a lot more flexible in your thinking about where you see opportunities and what skill sets you can build to help you achieve those opportunities. And you may have had to have been, you know, a generation ago or 2 generations ago.
I think the big word from there is opportunity. When you talk about opportunity, I think opportunity, that famous saying, you know, that luck is opportunity meeting preparation.
Correct.
I think from what I'm hearing you say is that you saw the opportunity, and it's not like you didn't have the end in mind, but the opportunity kept presenting itself and you kept going down that path. You kept going down that path. When someone does see an opportunity, should they respond quickly? Is there like a method of saying, does this make sense? Like, how do you go about when you see like an opportunity?
Yeah. So, you know, I do a lot of kind of career counseling for people, you know, both in our organization and outside of our organization. And generally, I find that, you know, when you look back at a career of anybody that's been successful over a period of time, you will find 4 or 5 things, maybe 4 or 5, maybe not even that many, times that there was an opportunity that presented itself, you know, and you either take advantage of it or you don't. And in order to take advantage of that opportunity, it involves a word that no one likes, which is risk. You know, you have to put yourself at risk in order to take advantage of any opportunity that's out there. Because you will never, you said something to me earlier that resonated with me, you will never be fully prepared. If you wait until you're fully prepared or you know everything that you need to know before you seize an opportunity, the opportunity will be long gone. You have to take advantage of every learning opportunity that you can, and then when you see an opportunity, you have to grab it. So one of the big one of my big 4 or 5 moments is as I was building my initial banking career. I lived in Miami. I've lived in Miami
Yeah.
since 1966. I, at a young age in my teens, uh, decided that I wanted to learn to speak Spanish. So I learned to speak Spanish very well, and not really knowing that that would ever have any particular, benefit to me other than being able to just walk around Miami and speak to people. A
Best place
little,
to speak Spanish.
best place to speak Spanish,
Yeah.
right? Little did I know that when I was 30, the opportunity would open in a very narrow and fast way at a time when the Latin American economies were turning around after the Latin American debt crisis in Mexico had put Latin America into kind of the lost decade, that then you would start, a resurgence of privatizations and economic opportunity and openings in most of the major economies in Latin America. So, I saw that opportunity, and, I was in a different kind of a job at the bank. I was running kind of a local, commercial banking team. I saw that as an opportunity. I was constantly reading, constantly trying to enhance my knowledge about things, saw that opportunity and said, well, I don't have any experience in international banking. I do have banking experience. I do live in Miami, and I do speak Spanish. And I saw an opportunity to go to the, executive level management of the bank that I was with at the time, which was SunTrust, and later became part of Truist, to say, hey, we have an opportunity in Latin America that we can take advantage of and grow a business there. We should take advantage of it. Everybody said, well, that sounds reasonable. Who do you think should run it? I said, me. And everybody kind of looked at me and said, you? Like, why you? You don't have any experience in this. I said, I don't, but I came up with the idea. And I saw the opportunity. And the one advantage that I do have is I speak the language. And so everybody kind of scratched their head for a while and thought about how much risk that was for the bank. And somebody told me, do you know how much risk you're taking? Because if this fails, like, you could lose your job. And so I said, I know that. I understand that. But I believed in myself, saw that opportunity, and was willing to take that risk. And we built a major multi-billion-dollar business in Latin America, and that catapulted me to other positions within the bank to eventually run corporate banking, international, commercial real estate, and other things. So that one seizing of the opportunity,
Catapulted you.
it would have been very easy to have said, it's too risky. Things are going well. Let me stay doing what I'm doing. Let me keep moving forward. But, looking around and trying to find where opportunities could present itself, led me to great things in the first part of my banking career, and then ended up leaving the banking business because I saw an opportunity in the insurance business. I'd never worked in the insurance industry, but I thought there was an opportunity to build, a sizable corporate insurance business in the state of Florida. I invested in a smaller firm, and we ultimately ended up growing it and selling it to a Fortune 500 company. When I did that, so many people that I knew said, why would you do that? What an enormous risk you're taking. I mean, I was already the president of the bank in Miami when I walked away from a great career in a 21-year history with this organization to join an industry that I'd never been in before and invest, my life savings in it. But I saw an opportunity, but I was willing to take that risk. So there's
Always I think it's crazy how there's such a distinctive like correlation between opportunity and risk, because people think
absolutely.
that you can have an opportunity and then, oh, I don't have to invest any money. I could have savings. Oh, I could do this. I can still go to school. Like, there's so much risk. And when people talk about it, when you hear people talk about it that have been successful, say you have to risk a lot. Then people see the opportunity and say, hold up, there's no risk. Oh my gosh, it's just so easy. Like, it's just a straight road. And then you get hit with the reality that, hold up. Like, if you want to go all in on this, there's going to be some things that you're going to push to the side. I think a lot of young people think that, like you said, that direction to where they want to get is linear. Oh, just from this position, this position, this position, or the contrary. Now there's a trend of you want to be an entrepreneur, right? You want to build a business, you want to do this, and they think, boom, I start the entrepreneurship, and within 1 year, I have 20K a month consistently net. It's like, okay, there's a lot.
That's not the way it works.
Yeah, but that's what's happening right now. And I think the most beautiful thing is that we look at Warren Buffett. We look at the people that have been doing it for so long. We look at, you said you had a 21-year career before you started that insurance company. Like, people don't understand that it requires so much time, and that time compounds, but you have to have a long enough time horizon. I think that's the big take from it. But when you hear, like, people say, young people, right? Like I just said, they want to be the top 1%. Top 1% in earners. They want to be a CEO. They want to be an entrepreneur. And they say, I am going to succeed in this. Reality is like 70, 90% of them all fail. But how do you know when someone tells you, like, hey, I want to be this person, whatever it may be, that they're actually going to become that person?
Yeah, almost always it's look, everybody can say that, but few people are willing to pay the price that's necessary to get there. So Kobe Bryant had a wonderful saying that I've always loved, which is, if you think the price of success is high, wait until you get the bill for failure. So what that means, I'll relate it to athletics because most people like athletics. The great players, the most successful people, are the people that they just don't want to be the best. You know, Michael Jordan didn't want to just be the best. Michael Jordan was in a gym every day for hours, watching film, practicing, conditioning himself. Kobe Bryant had insane work habits and study habits. And business is a lot like that. You know, these are very rare people who have performed at the highest level in a global sport. But it's very easy for me to tell. Everybody in a work environment would say, well, I want to be where you are. Okay, that's fine. But are you willing to dedicate yourself to do the things that are necessary to get there? Because that means sacrificing. It means hard work. It means improving yourself consistently. It means, studying, learning, exploring new horizons, tackling new challenges. It means working late. It means getting up early. I still get up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning.
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
My. What time do you go to sleep if you have to wake up at 4?
10 o'clock.
Damn.
I wake up at 4 o'clock and I read for an hour. I work out for an hour and a half. I come back and clear out all my emails and everything I have to follow up on. By 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, I've already accomplished a lot. Every night when I get home, I have, even at my level today, I have dinners out 3-4 times a week with clients. People we're trying to recruit to come to the organization. People I'm mentoring. There is a price to pay for success. Everybody wants the success. Few people are willing to pay the price. That price is work. And it's very easy for me to tell when I watch people who is really willing to perfect their craft, to improve every day, to put in the work, to sacrifice, to give up on the good times, to give up going out with friends, and really, put in the work that's required to be great at anything that they want to do. That's the difference.
I think that was, the most beautiful way to end it. And I really think if there's anything that you take from it, it's to have a sense of delayed gratification. I think that's a big part of it too, from what I'm hearing, because if someone thinks that now social media is like a good thing, a bad thing, because now social media, you can see somebody's life and say, holy crap, like, how are they driving this at this years old or whatever? It's fine, right? Everybody will be successful in their own way. But what I'm hearing you say is that once you decided to say, I wanted to change my life, It took 30 years until you saw like, and you're still not at the highest, like you're still climbing, you're still going, you're still growing, you're still
Right.
learning.
You still learn.
There's a never ending thing, but the point that I'm getting to is that it takes time to become the person that you want to become. And you have to have a little bit of patience, a lot of patience, but ultimately that sacrifice of like, you still want to have that, you're going out with your friends, you still want to have that college life, you still want to be clubbing till you're 30, you still want to do that? Well, I guess you don't want this bad enough. But if you do, then put everything to the side and be like a horse with like no thing, just go. And I think that's the big take. So
Yeah. Eric Spolstra has a wonderful saying that he uses a lot, which I use consistently,
yeah,
which is you have to embrace the grind. You have to enjoy the daily process of getting better, of working hard, of seeing yourself make improvement, of setting goals, of sacrificing to get there. You have to embrace the grind in order to be successful.
I think that's perfect. Embrace the grind. So anything that you take from this, embrace the grind. But if you did make it to the end, thank you. I love you. But more importantly, I want you guys to see exactly who this man is. Google him. Look at the BANKUNITED leadership team. I want you guys to understand who it is that I'm talking to so that you can realize that everything that he just said is not coming from a place of like, oh, motivation or this. He lived it. So I really want you guys to think about it, ponder on it, marinate it in your life, and see how it can apply to your life. But if you did make it to the end, feel free to subscribe. Make sure to follow all the social medias. I'll tag them down below. You have LinkedIn, right? No? Well, you have any social media platforms that you're on already?
The bank does.
The bank does. Okay, I'll link the BANKUNITED social media, the website, everything, so you guys can check it out. But seriously, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Thank you. Enjoyed being with you.
I enjoyed it more. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one.